Do you receive any pressure from your wife or from your family that maybe you guys should move out of this area?
Uh, no, not so much. It's more about just you know dealing with life circumstances. You adapt to what's around you in your life, right? So, like,
Hmm.
if my father-in-law needs an appointment, go to an appointment, and we really can't relocate because of that. So, and then of course, I have to go residency process, and so it's better to stay in the region you're at to do that. And I have no intention to leave this oblast because of family. Um, long term, maybe, but it's not because of the conflict.
And so you were born and raised in Canada, and you've been living in Russia with your Russian wife for how long now?
3.5 years. We got to Russia on April 2022.
Okay. And you've been
Literally.
experiencing, the conflict from your positioning, which is near the border. So tell us, what is your opinion of the Russia-Ukraine conflict?
Well, I think it's a very multi-layered conflict in terms of it having so many different factors that affect it. First and foremost, kind of this basic civil war aspect of it that occurred because of the Donbass region,
Hmm.
and that going back to 2014 with kind of U.S. like the U.S. interaction within Kiev, where they spent $5 billion to overthrow the government through various means, whether it be NGOs trying to have their people at the forefront and overthrow the president who was managing this kind of differences between the culture from west to east within Ukraine, and it got very ugly. And there was lots of atrocities occurring that just are unspeakable, like unspeakable. And I won't speak more about those things, but there were atrocities that occurred that were just very difficult to foster a de-escalation. And the more that the outside parties participated, whether it be foreign influence, the worse it got. And it doesn't matter what president was in power. I mean, I personally started tracking this conflict a long time ago, and it was obvious to me that something was going to start occurring because of the naval presence on the Black Sea of Russian forces that were there historically for a very, very long time. And
Hmm.
as Ukraine gained, Western perspectives and Western aid, and even myself in the military, I noticed the Canadian forces were starting to participate in the support of Ukrainian forces way back to 2013. And I just had like, this is not going to be good. Like, this is not going to go well for anybody because
Right.
I pretty much prescribe to real politics in terms of, if people know Dr. John Mearsheimer from the University of Chicago,
Hmm.
I kind of on the same page of all his kind of perspective on this conflict in terms of it being a conflict that is too serious for Russia to have not gotten involved in, like to have those kind of influences constantly trying to provoke into the regions and create, a battering ram, whatever you want to call it. It was it was an issue. I mean, that was not going to go away, and it's kind of why I call my show The Trajectory, because I see it just constantly being in a trajectory where there is no, you know, reduction in the tension. You know what I mean? It keeps seeming to escalate to different strategic levels, whether it be strategic to tactical. There's always like a development now in drone warfare and rocket warfare. This is going to probably incorporate a lot of space and a lot of and propaganda, like unbelievable amount of propaganda on in social media, which some of it is completely, especially in the beginning. I mean, it was obviously green screened. It was just meant to create controversy and demonize Russia, cause Russophobia to be at a fever pitch. And the more
Right.
that this goes on, and unfortunately, we see this from very high level politicians who don't seem to be motivated in any way for peace. I mean, there's so much compromise in terms of financial gain from conflict and war that people and institutions seem all too happy to participate and gain, and that's why we've had such a horrible witnessed, of this conflict, and it seems to be continuing. So
Right.
you asked me
Let me
about the long term project. I don't see it. I don't see anything that the U.S. would do.
So, about the conflict then, For 2026, which is just started, do you see a ceasefire as a possibility, given the Trump administration's recent posturing? What do you think is likely to happen or not happen?
You just have to hear Zelensky's statements in the last 24 hours. He's not interested in stopping this conflict, and he won't negotiate any surrender of territory. And
Hmm.
so, with that, it means the conflict will continue. And Zelensky is a person who's deeply compromised, and as most people probably can't even keep up anymore. There's so much people compromised in the Western leadership positions by nefarious means that no, I don't see a positive resolution here. I don't understand Trump and the American position at all. I think it's been all masquerading.
Hmm. So what do you mean by
I mean,
Zelensky
they
is
basically participate.
compromised?
Well, he's not in charge of the decisions. He's got to negotiate decisions based on European and American and UK influence, and that Anglo-American and European influence is such that they are using Ukraine as cannon fodder to try and destroy Russia.
Hmm.
It's and it's historically been documented in terms of think tanks that this is the way to go, but they're looking to break up Russia into sections, right? And in order to do that, you have to create a whole lot of havoc, especially into the Crimea along the Caucasus regions. I mean, it goes back in World War II. That was the plan by Hitler. You know, they're trying. There's countless and there's numerous evidence of regime change operations that are currently going on right now, even in Iran. And the plan is, for regime change so that they can always gain, resource influence into a territory and break up the power and pull the power away from the people, basically, for the most part. And,
Hmm.
people have a strong opinion about what Vladimir Putin is, but I think they put too much emphasis on Putin and not enough understanding that Russia is a country that has suffered greatly in history. The contributions that it has done in World War II are just being whitewashed now in this current environment, and it's just not possible to, uh, for me to participate in the ideological imbalance that's going on in liberalism right now across the
Hmm.
Western world. It's not realistic at all, and there's many counts of that. And I'm from Canada, and that was for me very difficult to live there in terms of how I didn't see from a Christian perspective and agree with a lot of the ideology that was being perpetrated.
Hmm.
And so, it's without making it controversy here, Russia, is probably one of the only countries on the planet that are standing up to this from a sovereign perspective against these ideologies. And, those forces, satanic forces that are behind that, unfortunately, are very aggravated with Russia because of that.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I've seen a few news stories lately where Ukraine is taking apart World War II monuments. You know, there just seems to be a strong Azov influence, and it looks like Ukraine is how shall I say this for the algorithm? Um, I guess you could say, putting it lightly, more sympathetic to Germany in the late 30s.